If you truly want what's best for the Mojave, then Yes Man is by far the best choice, and if you're someone who wants to keep both the NCR and Legion alive and intact, then this is also the best choice. Fallout New Vegas constantly tears at you. There's a rift, a vortex, a yin and a yang between idealism and realism, appearance versus reality. Mr. House, NCR, Yes Man, the Legion are all idealistic, but on the topic strictly on what brings maximum benefit and potential to all of the Mojave, Yes Man is the only one who can achieve that. Now, who is Yes Man? He is the key to independence, a robot who is forced to help, but by the end of the game, he changes. He changes his functions to basically override his coding that forces him to help those around him and gives him more choices, that is, more freedom, or free will rather, by making himself more assertive. The game ends it on a cliffhanger. He could be anything from an anatomical being of benevolence or a tyrannical dictator that plays to the worst fears mankind has about functioning AI. This is what throws people off the most when it comes to siding with Yes Man. It's a chance that some people aren't willing to make, which is understandable. Now, there are people who talk about Yes Man becoming similar to Skynet. This is the least plausible thing that can happen. One is the world's already destroyed, so there's that. Also, Yes Man doesn't have the means of production to exterminate the human race. While he can become dictator, it would be futile for him to go about exterminating. And there was also the Fallout New Vegas dev who said that Yes Man was becoming more assertive to act as a steward for the courier, and that he couldn't just answer to anyone and everyone. But this doesn't come from the writer of Fallout New Vegas, John Gonzalez, so I'm not going to acknowledge that in this video. Also, there are some who believe that the Mojave and New Vegas are worse off than the other choices. This is naive, and I'll explain. The NCR's greatest weakness is its size, and it doesn't just go away once it conquers the Mojave. No, rather its problems expand as their lands expand. Even with a completely good ending, the NCR is still the same. Only the Mojave is currently safe and protected. But at what cost? The problems people have with the NCR still remain. The capture of the Mojave, its extreme bureaucracy, its immense size, and lack of troops will either ensure that the NCR will collapse on itself, or, if not, all it needs is another Legion at its doorstep. In the ending slides, with a good karma, towns are protected, the roads are safe, and people are getting more help in Freeside than ever before. The biggest issue here, though, are the towns. If you look closely, while the towns receive more customers, they are taxed to hell. Sure, they are secured, but their freedom to govern themselves is robbed. The price of freedom has been paid for a good road and a weak government. Prim, Goodsprings must now pay heavy taxes to a failing government who already struggles to protect its borders and towns and cities they own. It is in the towns where the real Mojave is, the real world. Sure, there are NCR troops to protect them until there's another piece of land they want, then the NCR will bring their troops elsewhere. But the towns don't need the NCR. I think a lot of people choose the NCR because they have hope that good people will do good things. But the NCR is nothing but a symptom of old world blues, and they ignore the obvious problems just so they can get a taste of what was. They fail, in the words of Mr. House, to look out the window if they want to see the state of democracy. Here's a clip from Ulysses.
Bears too busy carving up the Mojave with knives, roads, borders, and how things should be, to see how it is. They're stretched thin, can't protect their front lines, their towns. Think paper's power, radio means control. All of it useless. No matter now. There couldn't hold the divide.
And he's right. The NCR cannot protect their towns, their front lines. They're so far from their home that they couldn't hold the divide. This overextension is what leads to towns like Nipton, deep within NCR borders, getting completely destroyed. But most of all, they bring their diseased nation to where it doesn't belong. Caesar's Legion, another symptom of old world blues on the opposite end of the NCR. Another good choice for those who value security over freedom. You see, in the world of Fallout, the old world system is still alive. Its beating heart, the last surviving organ of that system, beats still. You can see this in the nations that rise, the NCR, Legion, Vegas, and elsewhere. It's desperately trying to stay alive, desperately trying to cling to life. The Legion is a part of that system, pushed as the system pushes remedies across America. Ulysses sees this as well and understands the importance of a town free from government, free to become something in itself unique, cut from the chains of the old world so that humanity can change for the better. Caesar's Legion is better off than the NCR because the rate of violence Caesar employs is enough to control and scare off everyone. But Caesar's Legion suffers a part of the same disease that affects the NCR. Its constant need to expand will be its downfall. Caesar's conquest of the Mojave completely destroys whatever life was breathing in the Mojave. Goodspring declines, Prim survives, but remains as it was. Novak is destroyed and abandoned, and Freeside is pacified. The Mojave, once taken by Caesar, stagnates, becomes nothing with no potential, and suffers the chance for a future, at least for the time being. I would go as far as to argue that Caesar's Legion will end up like the NCR once Caesar is dead. Like Tandy, the Legion requires a single, strong leader to survive. Without that, it struggles to stand. Mr. House is the best option when it comes to choosing which of the old world systems could revitalize the old world and continue in its journey to ascend to the stars. But if you value morality, he is the worst choice. You catch a glimpse of this from the ending slides, which states New Vegas is run efficiently and coldly as well as in-game. The order of withdrawal sent from Mr. House to the NCR, which states that electricity from Hoover Dam will be sold at 5 caps per kilowatt hour, and water at 5 caps per gallon. Now if you do the math, that is ludicrous. That deal is ridiculously expensive and would no doubt have negative consequences for the NCR should they take that deal. I mean, Hoover Dam isn't the only source for electricity and water, so I'm sure the NCR could look elsewhere. In the ending slides, Goodsprings gains a Securitron and is said to be a mixed blessing as Mr. House monitors the town of Goodsprings, but I would argue that this doesn't matter. Goodspring gains protection, and with Mr. House ruling over the region, Goodsprings will never become anything more than a town. Maybe one day becoming a city, but that is too far into the future. Nevertheless, Goodsprings still has potential to grow and maintain its autonomy. Same with Prim, as it prospers and maintains that same autonomy, but these towns pay the price by never growing too large, outside of Mr. House's vision. A price to pay for authority. The Kings survive if they attack the NCR, but I get the hint that it doesn't become necessarily a safe place for all. There was no ending for the followers of the apocalypse, so who knows what happens to them? I assume that they're still there. All in all, while Mr. House is a good choice, the better choice between NCR and Legion, it still falls short of becoming a truly great place, unless you place spaceflight above morality and even freedom. The best part about Yes Man is that you get what you get, a free and independent New Vegas. If you look closely to the ending slides with Yes Man, towns thrive, Vegas is secured, Freeside becomes a haven, the Mojave is given the chance to create its own world, its own nation, its own freedom. There is one thing I would like to argue against, and that is General Lee Oliver's statement at the end of the game, which some people use as an arguing point against siding with Yes Man. Here's the clip.
Do you know what you're doing? Making a nation like you think you're doing ain't like chowing down on a pile of fancy lad snack cakes. Think you got the guts to carve out a frontier? Build towns, protect the roads, run supplies, train troops?
First things first is people assume it's the courier's job to do all of this, when in reality he doesn't have to do anything. The people of the Mojave will see to that. Carving out a frontier doesn't have to happen. The Mojave doesn't have to be some superpower that expands its borders or else. Actually, the landscape around the borders of the Mojave makes defense of the Mojave easy. There are a lot of natural choke points that can be defended easily by a militia or Securitron army. The next point, building towns. Again, it's not the courier's responsibility. Towns will be built on its own naturally as migrants enter the Mojave. If towns are thriving, they will in turn expand, as well as more settlements will arise as a result. Protect the roads and run supplies. Well, caravans will take care of this, as they have been. Also, towns can easily patrol the roads, but I would go as far as to say, if these towns are thriving, then the roads themselves are safe. The only real threat to the roads are little raider groups, as the fiends have been destroyed. Nothing more will be in the way of the roads than just your average bandit. Another arguing point is that people say that the followers of the Apocalypse slide indicates that many people, more people, die than any other slide, but this is wrong. Let me explain. The first slide indicates that chaos in the streets were put down quickly with minimal loss of life. Well, if New Vegas is secured, if Freeside becomes a haven, if the towns are thriving, the only logical conclusion is that the influx of patients are coming in after the Battle of Hoover Dam. Else, where is the violence coming from that would bring large numbers of wounded people to the fort? Also, these are just patients. They're not dead, which again proves that Yes Man's ending doesn't actually have more deaths than the other endings, and can easily be argued that Yes Man's ending has the least amount of deaths. Ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, that is the end of this video. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to like and subscribe and share it. That helps out a lot. Leave a comment below of what you think the best choice is. I'll be interested to hear it. If you would like to see more content like this, or just more Fallout New Vegas content in general, feel free to leave a comment below letting me know. Also, if you have an interest in the Roman Republic or Roman history in general, I do have content on my channel that goes incredibly in-depth, at least in my opinion, and you'll see before you now on the screen a link to one of those past videos. Thank you for watching, and Wale.
Legatus, a stranger arrives, one who bears the mark.
Finally, Mars has accepted my sacrifices and unleashes me.